outside of maybe finance, this space is the most intimate relationship you can have with a brand, right? They have your health data. They have the most, you know, data about you that no one else has about what's happening inside and around your body. So, this should be the best experience that you have if you
It,
look at it that way.
yeah, it should at least be the most secure feeling at a
Right.
minimum. Today on Customerland, Paul Dane, who is CEO of Abundant Health Acquisition. For today, we're going to call that AHA. Just let that sink in for a minute because this is a great brand name. To talk about the work that they're doing in the world of healthcare experience. So first of all, Paul, thanks for joining me. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Mike. I'm delighted to be here.
I almost got soapboxy before we turned the record button on here about, why we're pursuing so much coverage in the worlds of experiences. But I tried to stop myself. I don't know if I was successful in that because really this is more about you, your perspective, what you're doing at AHA. But let's start with a little bit about your role there, what brought you to this place,
Yeah.
because there's probably a lot that went into that.
And I think that'll help set things up a little bit too, especially I think we'll get back to your soapbox. But as you mentioned, I'm Paul Dane, CEO of Abundant Health Acquisition. We're going to call ourselves AHA moving forward today. I've been with the company since its inception in 2018. And it was really my first deep dive into healthcare. I have been an ad agency and digital marketing person pretty much my entire career since the early 90s. And I've worked across, I think, every vertical that you could possibly imagine. And I've been fortunate, very fortunate in my career to have a wide range of roles. I started off, and maybe this will give you a little bit of some flavor for my background, but I started off as an advertising copywriter in Detroit working in automotive. But it was right as the web was starting to take hold. Netscape wasn't even a thing yet. It was still a beta version of Mozilla. And it was for an agency that I won't name them and I won't name the client, but one of the most revered brands in automotive.
Can I just a quick interjection there?
Sure.
That's my background and my rough same
Interesting.
timeline. How come you look at least 10 years younger than I do?
I don't know.
Doesn't seem right unless you started when you were an early preteen or something.
I
But
was
anyway,
it was my early 20s. So I was a copywriter working on things like everything from ad slicks to some radio. And our our creative director came around one day and just said, does anybody know how to build a website? Brand X needs a website, and we don't know what that means. So there was like this cabal of web hobbyists and some art directors, some writers who were all, tinkering with this stuff. We're like, we raised our hands, and it was just a crazy ride ever since then. I've had creative roles, I've had roles in UX. I've probably spent most of my time as a technology lead, but then also as an account director, a strategy lead, which then led me to AHA most recently. So it's been a roller coaster and kind of wild ride, but I have no regrets. My entire career, I've been very fortunate throughout my entire career to have just such a wealth of experience and given such great opportunities.
so we're going to have an offline conversation and compare our resumes because there are some significant parallels there. It's
Okay.
wild, actually. So just a side note, I started my career as a copywriter as well in advertising, doing the same kind of work, and then
Wonderful.
went into digital marketing much for the same reasons and ways you did. But anyway, um, I think one of the things that intrigues me about what you just said about your journey there is that having experienced so much of and produced so much of the kinds of messaging and methods that are designed to engage people. If you followed my same trajectory, and it seems like you kind of did, you kind of ended up in this place where it really does coalesce into this idea of experience
Mm-hmm.
somehow.
Absolutely.
It's and for me, that light bulb didn't really go off until, really just a few years ago that that term started becoming the way I think about things. It
Hmm.
seems like AHA was an earlier adopter of the idea because, I'm thinking back to 2017, healthcare experience as a term was a fairly new, not very widely adopted idea at that point.
Yeah, yeah, and I think it's still emerging as an idea, specifically the term health or healthcare experience. I think if you asked most people on the street what how would they define or give an example of a health experience, they'd probably cite, Apple Fitness and Apple Health as an example. They might cite some, services from Walgreens or Amazon as some best in class around that. But I don't think they would associate it with the traditional healthcare system and providers and payers. They're such an outlier in that I think you know, the technology companies, even the some upstarts, some younger startups view themselves that way, but it's really just emerging for the larger, more traditional providers.
Can you, just from your perspective, maybe, what is the Paul Dane definition of healthcare experience? How do you see that, and how do you articulate it?
It's a great question. We have, or I have, um, an idea. Well, let me back up because there's a term you might be familiar with in this space called digital front door. It's really heavily used over the past several years in healthcare, in conjunction with consumerism, healthcare consumerism. And if I start talking about healthcare experience or health experience with a customer, they'll usually try to then draw an analog to, okay, well, he's talking about our digital front door. And I personally am not a fan of the term digital front door because it implies that there's one entryway into a brand's digital ecosystem. And I underscore the term ecosystem because what I think of when I think of what a health experience or healthcare experience should look like is a unified ecosystem of services, capabilities, content that is seamless to me as a consumer. Very much, it's cliche to keep citing Apple as an example, but very similar to how Apple keeps strengthening their ecosystem in a seamless way. And I think that's, for better or worse, that should be an aspiration for us. But providing that health experience that is seamless, is easy, and this isn't often associated with healthcare, but delightful. How do
Right.
we make something that's a delight to use? Um, so that's maybe a long walk for a short drink of water, but that's how I view it.
No, I think that that's really good and it's helpful because of, I think it informs why you do what you do and how you do it. I'm curious because, as you said a minute ago, the idea behind healthcare experience is a fairly new one, just in
Mhm.
terms of the age of the industry overall. And I know in other verticals, trying to explain and inject new thought into those systems can be difficult um, and challenging. And so much of the conversation that the people I interview on this show end up having to do with change management. And you're
Mhm.
coming in
Mhm.
with new ideas into you know well-established cultures and methods and KPIs and trying to say, look, here's the better way. I'd love to hear how you at AHA approach that because you're knocking on doors that may not want to be opened.
Yeah, I think so. I think there's a pretty clear path that has been paved over the past several years. There's been a movement within providers, especially, to bring in talent from outside of healthcare, especially digital talent. And related marketing talent. So I think there's a strong desire for it, but I think there are maybe a handful of categories of barriers, largely internal, that these health systems face in the realization of that, that vision, that experience that they may want to realize for their community. Those can be operational, they can be technical, they can be political, and so on. So I guess my point is that there's strong desire, there's a strong intent, I think, from leadership in most senior leaders that I've talked to. Um, it it falls apart often or gets slowed, and maybe that's a better description of it. The pace is so slow to realize it that as we consumers are being left behind, and that's one of the reasons why healthcare experiences from providers are still largely reviled.
The 2025 Global EXI Awards are now open for entries. The EXIs are the first and only awards program dedicated to highlighting the innovative approaches to customer experience, CX, employee experience, EX, user experience, UX, UI, experience design, and experience architecture across verticals, retail experience, travel experience, healthcare experience, and more. We're working with a growing list of sponsors and partners around the world to honor the breakthrough approaches to creating experiences that drive results. The confluence of technologies and the convergence of business necessities are driving some of the most creative experiences ever, and we think it's time to give credit where credit is due. The 2025 Global EXI Awards are now open for entries, and early bird pricing ends soon. To learn more, go to exiawards.com, that's EXXY awards.com, or visit customerland.net and click on the EXI banner. Yeah, there's an awful lot of chatter out there, and I think if you did a sentiment analysis on all of it, you'd probably find it was largely negative,
Yeah, and I'm not gonna point the finger at any one vendor. People can draw their own conclusions,
right?
But I think and we're to maybe take it to the next step. We started off as a company as a digital marketing agency and web development agency focused on healthcare providers. Our first customer was Memorial Hermann in Houston, large health system. And we were assigned to redevelop their website, kind of, straightforward agency stuff, been doing it my entire career. One of our clients, the first thing she said to me was, "Well, welcome to healthcare where it's 2008." And it's kind of, the running joke.
Right.
They had a content management
system. Funny, but it's not funny.
Yeah. No, I know. This is outside of maybe finance. This space is the most intimate relationship you can have with a brand, right? They have your health data. They have the most, data about you that no one else has about what's happening inside and around your body. So, this should be the best experience that you have if you look at it that way.
Yeah, it should at least be the most secure feeling.
Right.
At a minimum,
Yeah, and that's a whole separate conversation, about the breaches that have happened and right. The security issues that large health systems have had to deal with over the years. But when she said that to me, it really resonated because it was a recognition from them internally that they're behind. They're really behind.
Interesting. My agency experience, we had for by about 2.5 years or so, we were dealing with a local healthcare system, regional healthcare system, doing the same kinds of things you did, building out their website and their apps and, even some more of their direct mail and other marketing channels. One of the things that struck me though was that they had just completed a brand new hospital in a
Mhm.
kind of growing suburban area. And this was some of the most beautiful architecture I've ever seen. I mean, it was just gorgeous with all the most modern thinking about how to create an environment that's conducive to healing. And
Mhm.
aside from the wild technology that we got to see in this thing, and then when it got to time to talk about how to engage patients, prospective patients, how to, at that point, I remember having early conversations about removing friction, and it was kind of like, what are you talking about? Our
Mhm.
facility here is a state-of-the-art facility. That's what's going to bring people in here. We don't need to be thinking about all this experience junk. So suffice to say that business relationship only lasted
Yeah.
about 2.5 years, and then it was kind of like this doesn't go nowhere.
But that's where the journey begins,
Yeah,
and if they don't recognize, I understand why they have to make choices. And I don't want to get into I don't think you want to get into the economics around all of this, because I think that's probably a whole separate discussion. But they have, let me say it this way. A health system simultaneously can have the most advanced technology in the country and the least advanced technology in the country. When they're serving their patients, when somebody is getting something, having a serious procedure performed, they have access to the world's best technology quite often. But when it comes to the consumer experience or the digital patient experience outside of the hospital, it's usually subpar.
yeah.
But no other industry thinks that way. They want an end-to-end positive, best-in-class consumer experience,
I mean,
generally speaking.
I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, but in my view, there was it wasn't necessarily inside the hospital, outside the hospital. It was you could walk into the hospital and the modern, really cool stuff, if you will, processes, environments,
Yeah,
experiences happened once you're admitted. You
exactly.
just see the whole,
Yeah,
machines that go
that's what I
through.
mean. Yeah,
But you're walking it like even up to admitting, it was like, let me just say this, it sucks. It sucks. It
it
was
does. It's
so
horrible.
bad.
I think I said reviled. Like
Yeah,
it's
okay. You're better than my
no,
word. So yeah.
no.
Um,
It's yeah. I no. I fully agree, and that's where I think there's that gap. But it doesn't have to be that way. And we're not looking to fix the healthcare system by any stretch with what we're doing. What we're trying to do, and this builds on what I said about how we started, what we found ourselves doing with health system websites was building the same stuff over and over and over. And again, that's not something any other industry would do. And if you look at like retail experience, you'd be a fool to every time you built um, an e-commerce site for a retailer, building the shopping cart from scratch.
right.
Whether it's the UX or the design or the technology. But that's kind of what happens in this space, is that we build the same stuff over and over and
From
over.
scratch over and over again. Right.
Yeah, because it's such a regional industry. And the um, the CMS vendors, the digital experience platform vendors like Sitecore and others, they provide a general market solution to including their healthcare customers, right? So they have to service everybody. And then it falls on the digital agency, largely, generally local for a health system. So a local agency to build that website for them. And again, though, that's most likely a general market agency. And this is one of many customers that they have. So they're going to build their website just like they build everybody else's website. They've got a business to run. They've got margin targets to hit. Um, but the need of a healthcare system from a capability perspective really exceeds their ability to provide the budgeting necessary to deliver on all of that. They have more back-end systems, more complex ecosystem of back-end systems than I think I've ever seen throughout my career. And that's expensive to do, especially if you're doing custom development, custom design over and over. And you have, you know, designers and developers at these local agencies that don't have experience working in Epic, don't have experience working in a lot of these solutions. So they have to make trade-offs. So what we saw an opportunity to do was create a scalable platform, much like an e-commerce platform, that gives that vertical specific capability that we were developing over and over again. So, everything from the find a doc experience to the scheduling process directly in the website, that more often than not, a consumer has to go to a separate patient portal or something
Right.
else to
Offsite and then
complete
come back.
offsite stuff.
Yeah.
And the brand has limited customization capability
And control and
within this.
security too.
100%. So our focus over the past 2, 3 years now has been on what we call the Health Experience Platform, or HXP, developing software that allows not just the health system, but also the DXP vendor like Sitecore, Kentico, and others, and the digital marketing agency, because it's a developer platform as well, to stand up much richer feature-rich, user-focused capabilities directly within the website that connects into those back-end systems really easily.
Is it a fair comparison? I'm making this up here, so
Yeah,
I'm likely wrong, but would it be a fair comparison, at least for on the front end, to say this is comparable to something like a Shopify for e-commerce, where you
yep,
got a basic platform and then modules that you can bolt on as needed?
absolutely.
Okay.
But even Shopify does have, they require you to kind of go offsite. It's a completely hosted solution. I think the
Hmm.
difference with us that makes us more like a traditional e-commerce package that a Sitecore offers is that we're fully integrated into the on-premise or cloud-based DXP that they're already using,
Okay.
right?
All right. Gotcha.
So like
Interesting.
so like we're an independent software vendor partner of Sitecore's. Doesn't mean it means we have historically worked with them to build websites for customers, but now what we're doing is building software that extends Sitecore's capabilities.
Okay. All right. So yeah, I'm thinking of parallels in other verticals that I've
Hmm.
seen. One in particular, and I don't think I should name them, but it was that was their business strategy from day one, and it took. So they spent a lot of money and time in the early phases building this. What ended up being kind of a connector platform,
Yeah.
um, and knowing that once it took, it would take well, and in fact, it did. The company's done just extraordinarily well with that model
Hmm.
because even though it took them a while to develop it, work the kinks out, make the connections, but once you've inserted yourself into a rich partner landscape ecosystem, it's all there. It's just a matter of plugging in and running, and that's what these folks. That sounds like there's a strong parallel there.
I think it's a great parallel. That's really what we're looking to do. Connectors, that's kind of how we started this platform, was on the data connector side, because our clients were digging themselves into technical debt by developing their own connectors. But anytime a change was made or they wanted to migrate to a new DXP platform, they had to rebuild, they had to rewrite. And that's a pretty significant time investment. And they also, they have attrition, they have a host of issues that they're dealing with. So giving them something that's a bit more of a standard and they can rely on, that is supported, it can be trained on, and gives them speed to market, we've seen so far it's been well received.
Wow, I can see why. Um, this may take us kind of deep into the weeds here, and we don't really have to go here, but you've built this platform as a connector, platform. Again,
Mhm.
there's a better word for it than that, I'm sure. Um, and certain healthcare systems are going to be ready for it, and certain ones aren't. But regardless, it seems to me that there's probably a big chunk of AHA's effort that would need to be advisory in nature,
Mhm.
um, consultative, figuring out what they have, what they don't have, navigating the internal cultures and politics,
Yep.
before just saying, look, here's our connector box. We can make this work. There's
Yeah,
probably a lot of
I, I I think our implementation phase for customers is maybe 75% shorter than the sales cycle.
okay.
So
All right.
if that helps kind of put it in
It
perspective.
does, yeah. Not
Uh,
surprising, but
um,
it's pretty
but
long.
yeah, you can have up to a 2-year sales cycle in healthcare IT.
Right.
Um, and a lot of that sales cycle is getting that alignment that you're talking about, educating. This is especially for something new. And I think it takes some time to kind of get your head around exactly what it is we're doing. Um, and to understand the value of it. We have to do a lot of show and tell. And part of our process too, we found really useful is to do some pre-visualization with our clients to say, okay, this is what your scheduling process looks like right now. If you adopt HXP, this is how it can look, right? And that can be a really great um, kind of unifier with the team, but also I think helps them socialize internally and get broader stakeholder alignment to say, oh yeah, that is what I want. I didn't know that was possible. So, we pull so many different levers to try to accelerate that process. But we're learning incrementally. It's still pretty early days.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure. I'd like to shift the conversation a little bit to, well, really the kinds of operations and functions and features that you're seeing healthcare systems plug into and grow with now. And I think having a kind of snapshot of the now uh, situation would be helpful. But I think maybe even more so, what's that going to look like
Hmm.
in 2 years or whatever it is? Because you're probably in a unique position where you're seeing trends from an elevated level before people, on the street level are really aware of them. So, the state of, you know, HCX now, and what do you think it's going to look like in a couple of years?
Yeah. So this is the part of the conversation I really like. We've had to kind of like temper ourselves because as we start to unlock different capabilities and realize the potential of what could be, we get really excited. But your question about what the now looks like, there's so much opportunity to just to crack the basics and to have the fundamentals be solidified from an experience perspective. And I'm talking really specifically around finding a provider and scheduling. Like that's the low hanging fruit in this space. If you can provide a a really simple provider search and scheduling capability versus what exists in the market right now, that's a huge win. And we view that as like the first tier, our foundation to then build upon with incremental capabilities. I'll probably get a little bit in the weeds here, but there's a reason for the weediness. Are you familiar with the term open scheduling in the
Uh-huh.
context of, yeah,
Yep.
so open scheduling is the publicly available, first time patient sort of scheduling. It's what I can see on the website without having to log in. So that's where our focus has been, is on open scheduling to date. What we're doing this year is going to be unlocking the ability to have a one-to-one personalized experience, an authenticated experience in the primary website to then unlock direct scheduling. But direct scheduling, where it's with your existing provider, is also sort of low-hanging fruit. What it opens, having personalized, authenticated experience within the primary website, though, unlocks incredible capability. Something that the patient portal space can't do, which is commingle the wealth of content that the health system has on their current website with EHR data. So if they know that I have, you know, uh, a history of cholesterol, and I sign into the homepage of the website, not the patient portal, I can be greeted with my EHR data, what I need to know, any appointments that are coming up. But what I can also see are not just links to articles that are probably going to be relevant to me around cholesterol, but ideally, and this is something we're testing out right now, is AI-driven summaries of, okay, given where I am right now and maybe appointments that I have coming up, what I can do to prepare for an appointment, what I should be doing daily. Maybe I even sync it in, with real-time data, like from Apple Health or from Google, to even make that a richer, more real-time experience in one place, right? No one has access right now to everything. But as you start to unlock these authenticated, orchestrated capabilities, that's where it gets really exciting to me and allows us to create that kind of what I mentioned earlier, that ecosystem feel for an individual healthcare provider.
Really interesting. I spent the bulk of the past week at a giant retail technology show here in New York,
Mhm.
um, and the thinking is very, very similar. Now,
Yep.
retailers, the more sophisticated retailers, have been doing this kind of thing for several years with, um, you know, wildly functional and capable CDP platforms that you can bring in data from a multitude of sources, parse it, understand it, deploy it so that the customers are getting these unique, highly tailored experiences.
Mhm.
And I can tell you, as a healthcare consumer, I've never seen anything even remotely close to that in that world whatsoever. So that seems like,
Yeah,
in some iteration, in some level of sophistication, that's kind of what you're talking about.
I think so. And I'll share some inspiration for me personally. I'm a pretty voracious technology consumer as well. Um, but I'm also a longtime runner. So I use Strava every day, multiple times a day. And to me, Strava is almost a gold standard when it comes to health experience. Um, First, because it's just it's a source of incredible positivity, just the way that the system runs, and it's all about affirmations and sharing things about your health in a positive environment. But they've recently started to roll out really interesting features, like they have a new athlete intelligence feature that is kind of, I call it kind of stupid AI tricks, but they're delightful. They really add a nice little personalized flair like you'd want from a real coach that
Huh.
assesses your last workout, gives you, a summary readout on how that performance was relative to workouts over the past 60, 90 days. And then it even does it for each submetric, like heart rate, pace, miles run, and so on. So you have this, kind of commingled with your stats. You have context being provided around it for each one. So you don't have to then go look and how does this look like in a chart? What does this look like in a chart to 3 months ago? So that's the kind of like really personalized experience that resonates with me that serves as inspiration.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably another one of those conversations that we should just dedicate to, what does the robust experience look like? Because there's 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 so many different ways you could paint that picture, and there's so many different ways you can get there. But
Yeah.
what I think is really cool about this conversation and what you guys are doing is that you stepped into it intentionally with that mindset into an industry that is you know let's just say not really ready for it, but needs it badly.
They
You
will get
know,
there. They will get
yeah, I'm
there.
sure they will.
Yeah.
Um, so, and yeah, I've been a fan of Stravas for a long time. We did a short series on them a couple of years ago
Okay.
because they were ahead of the curve, doing some really great things around user privacy and
Yep.
notification and
Oh,
transparency.
right. Yeah. Especially when they had some issues around the users on military bases.
Right. And they came
Yeah.
right out and said, and in the most transparent, like, hey, this is what happened.
Yep.
Nobody
No,
does that. Yeah. I mean, I
no,
think it
that
was a
was
lesson for the rest of the world.
it absolutely was. They handled
Right.
it with great aplomb.
Yeah. really did a nice job. Well, again, I think there's so much we could be talking about here, but I want to be kind to your schedule.
Well, I
Um,
appreciate it. I appreciate the time. It's been a
oh
fun
no,
conversation.
I'm really serious. This is the stuff. Again, I stand. I could get very soapboxy here, but and I don't want to. Suffice to say, thank you. This is really rich. It's a lot of fun. It's really informative. It's interesting. I think the people who listen to this podcast are going to get a lot out of it because there's a there's a cross-pollination effort that we
Hmm.
frankly we like. We like the fact that we're talking to people who are all about this kind of engagement experience idea from different disciplines.
Yeah.
And we're all getting ideas from one another. So
No,
from that
it's an exciting
standpoint,
time for it.
thank you for this, for being transparent. Thanks for sharing your ideas, and we'll pay lots of attention to what you and AHA are doing.
Well, thank you so much, Mike. It's been a pleasure. Really enjoyed the conversation.